Now, as we said, turning to bobby calves, with bobby calf returns are now down in the dumps, and processors are signalling this season's price will be lower again than last year. Last season's price was already at a tipping point, so taking it any lower is going to mean dairy farmers are going to be incentivised to euthanise on farm rather than rearing the calves to 4 days, particularly for farms facing a massive staff shortage with, of course, COVID and our borders being closed, or with longer trucking distances now to processors. On-farm slaughter is unpalatable for many farmers, even if it means producing 4-day-old calves at a financial loss. Now, global markets for veal are driving this. Joining us now to discuss the situation is Sales and Marketing Manager for BX Foods, Gerard Brier. Gerard, BX Foods have pulled out of the bobby calf market. Is this because of the global situation? What is happening with veal?
Hello, Sarah. Thank you for the opportunity to join us today. So, yes, BX Foods is not processing bobby calves this coming season, primarily due to a plant reconfiguration at Oamaru. Okay. We've processed bobby calves there for the last 5 or 6 years, quite successfully, and I believe we could have done so again this year, but just struggling with how we were going to manage reconfiguration of the plant as we increase some capacity there for our bovine production, both cows and steers. So as far as what's happening in the market, you did sum it up, there is a lot going on, and it is quite an uncertain environment within which we're operating. And we can lay that primarily at the door of COVID. The byproducts you mentioned, probably halving in return, maybe back 3/4 to a half, whether it's serum, bones or skin. And then the cuts, which, as we know, returns are significantly reduced by lower demand from the food service and restaurant sector around the world. So yes, it is tough times, and the meat companies are signalling maybe returns will be back, which is a concern for what happens on farm. I guess that from the meat company's point of view, they sort of feel the need to give the signal to the sector so that there's no surprises as we move forward, as we ask for transparency sort of throughout the supply chain.
Now, of course, bobby calf kill season is used by many processing plants to tie over from processing sheep over the winter and keep your skilled labour employed. Could you expand a bit when you mean about your processing plants restructuring and so therefore flow-on effect to your operations in general?
Yeah, sure. So our primary production at Oamaru is we'll focus on lamb and mutton over this next few months, and there will be a reduction on the hours that the plant is operating, which will hit those in the pocket. This is particularly through September, but there'll be work each week regardless. But we'll be doing work around that as we expand the plant, which currently lacks a dedicated beef boning room. Which is something we're rolling out, making a start on next month.
Okay, absolutely.
As far as from an industry point of view, to your question about use of labour through that period, yes, bobby calves have fulfilled a very important role. When we processed the last couple of years around 1.75 million calves, bobby calves across the nation, about 1 million in the North Island and 750,000 in the South, and certainly that's a lot of product. And fills an important period that really is the depths of winter otherwise from a processing point of view, starting in sort of late August down south but really begins very shortly in the north and sort of follows that weather pattern through the south and sort of dribbles out into October, as we can all picture the old cows calving period through this spring period that's nearly upon us.
Now, of course, for our calf rearers and going on to our beef finishers and that bull market as well, what sort of certainty or crystal ball glazing can you give for the correction back in the global beef markets for people to hold on, especially when there's very tight winter feed around?
Good question. Big question. Wish I had that. Wish I had all the answers right there. I do think that with the uncertainty of the last 4 months or so and reduced capacity, global uncertainty with COVID through manufacturing sites in the States, uncertainty as to how much, even though that's obviously corrected in the short term, uncertainty as to where those issues are going to sit with us all in the coming months, or dare I say it, years, God forbid. It is pleasing to see a lack of inventory through Asia, other than maybe China, which continues, I should speak about China for a moment, continues to have massive uptake in its beef imports, even this year. And nice to see that the price there on pork's up 35% in the last 8 weeks, is starting to translate back into the red meat, which is good to see. But generally speaking, looking forward, I think as we look at recovery across some of these different economies, we'll always see the manufacturing trade do well. Manufacturing trade in regards to the manufacturing meat and the hamburger patty, of course, QSRs, that sort of thing. So I think we're sitting in a pretty good space, talking 18 months, 2 years out, and so we should continue to have confidence that things will be sitting quite well. Underlying fundamentals remain. African swine fever, we'll see Chinese production back maybe 20% this year. We've still got a fair way to ride out the issues that's brought about. So we sort of maybe lose sight of that as COVID consumes a lot of the conversation.
While you're undergoing your plant's sort of what's the word? Sorry, I've just lost it. Reconfiguration. There we go. I had some big words tonight. How much is that is going to focus on some more consumer-led, as there's been a real swing from that food service into retail, and particularly e-commerce, for someone like BX Foods, and it's not relying necessarily on that manufacturing beef trade?
I don't think necessarily the reconfiguration itself is going to be so focused in that regard. It has become more and more a part of our business naturally, however. So we're starting to sort of took a bit of a lead out of the MLA book in Australia and starting to promote different unique brands out of our site with different provenance stories, different attributes, and not hard sort of to pick on them. As you probably, I think we've discussed this before, but all of Omeru's lambs, 100% GMO free, 100% HB free, 100% antibiotic free, 100% grass fed, 100% traceable to birth. And I think we should be pushing for that as a nation, but that's another story. But it means that we're capitalising on those attributes and really pushing these unique brands that tell different threads of the New Zealand ink story. And it's really leaning itself very well to the current trend of moving to online and retail consumption. So had a massive uptake in the last few months, which has been fantastic.
Gerard, this probably might be a hard question to finish on, but what's the light at the end of the tunnel that you're focusing on that does have some positivity and optimism for our farming audience listening?
I think we've got a fantastic story still to sell. We are COVID-free from NZ. We've got growing global population, protein shortage. We've learned to be even more adaptable in these recent times, or showing us how adaptable we are, I should say, maybe. So I think there's a lot to be positive about, where people need to continue to eat, and the reality is they can't eat trees. So we're in a very good space.
What a wonderful way to end it there, Sales and Marketing Manager for BX Foods, Gerard Brier.
This is Sarah's Country.